Commander Jake Morrison stood in the dark observation room watching the screens that showed empty space. He had been watching for 3 hours now, and nothing had changed. The stars looked the same as they always did from this hidden station floating between Mars and Jupiter. But Jake knew something was coming. The intelligence reports had been clear about that. Earth looked peaceful from here. The blue and green planet turned slowly in the distance, surrounded by the normal traffic of cargo, ships, and passenger vessels. People down there were going to work, eating dinner, watching movies. They had no idea what was heading their way. Jake thought that was probably for the best. The door behind him opened, and Captain Lisa Grant walked in. She looked tired. Lisa had been Earth's ambassador to the Galactic Federation for 5 years now, and the job was wearing on her. She carried a data pad in her hand, and Jake could see from her face that the news was not good. "They sent the message," Lisa said quietly. "The Zephyrians are coming." Jake nodded. He had expected this. The Zephyrian Empire had been growing more aggressive over the past year. They had conquered 3 smaller worlds, and the Federation had done nothing to stop them. Now they wanted to make an example of someone bigger, someone who would send a message to the rest of the galaxy. "How long do we have?" Jake asked. "Their fleet will be here in 6 hours, Lisa replied. "Admiral Crix is commanding it personally. 200 ships, including their flagship Dreadnought." Jake turned back to the screens. 200 ships was a lot of firepower. The Zephyrians were known for their brutal tactics and advanced weapons. They did not believe in showing mercy to their enemies. When they conquered a world, they made sure everyone knew about it. "What did the Federation say?" Jake asked, even though he already knew the answer. Lisa's shoulders sagged. They expressed their sympathy for Earth's situation. "They said they would hold a memorial service for us after the Zephyrians are done. But they will not risk war with the Empire over one member world." It was exactly what Jake had expected. The Federation was made up of hundreds of different species, but they were all afraid of the Zephyrians. Earth had been a member for 30 years, and had always been a loyal ally. But when push came to shove, loyalty only went so far. "The President is calling an emergency meeting," Lisa continued. "All the world leaders are gathering by hologram in 1 hour. They need to decide what to do." Jake knew what they would decide. Earth had no choice. The planet had no visible military fleet in space, no weapons platforms, no defense stations. As far as the galaxy knew, humans were peaceful traders and diplomats. They grew food, made art, and studied science. They were not warriors. The Zephyrians had chosen Earth precisely because it looked weak. They wanted to show the galaxy what happened to species that tried to influence Federation politics without having the military might to back it up. It was a lesson that would not be forgotten. On the screens, Jake could see the normal traffic around Earth continuing as usual. Cargo, ships loaded with grain and manufactured goods were heading out to the trade routes. Passenger liners were bringing tourists from other worlds to see Earth's famous cities and natural wonders. Research vessels were departing for the outer system to study asteroids and gas giants. Everything looked normal and peaceful, but Jake knew that was about to change. In 6 hours, the Zephyrian fleet would arrive and demand Earth's surrender. When Earth refused, they would begin the bombardment. Cities would burn, billions would die, and the galaxy would learn not to challenge the Empire's authority. He thought about his sister, Karen, who lived in Chicago with her 2 kids. She was a teacher at the local school and had never hurt anyone in her life. She would be having dinner with her family right now, helping the kids with their homework, maybe watching the news. She had no idea that alien warships were racing toward Earth with orders to destroy everything she had ever known. Jake's hands clenched into fists. The Federation might be willing to abandon Earth, but he was not ready to give up. There had to be something they could do. Some way to fight back, or at least make the Zephyrians pay a price for their aggression. "What about our defense plans?" Jake asked. "The emergency protocols?" Lisa shook her head. What defense plans? We have some police ships in orbit, and a few patrol boats. Nothing that could stand up to a Zephyrian battlecruiser, let alone their entire fleet. Jake stared at the peaceful scene on the screens. Somewhere out there, beyond the range of their sensors, the Zephyrian fleet was approaching. Admiral Crix was probably sitting in his command chair right now, planning the destruction of Earth's cities. He would start with the major population centers to maximize terror, and then work his way down to the smaller towns and villages. The door opened again, and more people began filing into the observation room. Intelligence officers, communications specialists, and military analysts all came to watch the end of their world. They spoke in quiet voices, sharing the latest reports and updates. But Jake could see the despair in their eyes. They all knew there was nothing they could do on Earth. President William Hayes was probably sitting in his office right now, trying to find words to tell the world that they were about to die. The man had spent his entire career working for peace and cooperation between species. Now, he would have to announce that all of that work had been for nothing. Jake thought about all the human colonies scattered across the galaxy. There were millions of humans living on other worlds, working as traders, scientists, and diplomats. When Earth fell, they would become refugees at best and targets at worst. The Zephyrians would not stop with one world. They would hunt down every human they could find. The screens showed a cargo ship leaving Earth's orbit, heading for the trade routes. Jake wondered if the crew knew what was coming. Would they try to warn other humans? Would they turn around and try to help? Or would they keep flying, trying to get as far away as possible before the shooting started? He closed his eyes and tried to think of some way out of this situation. Some miracle that could save his world and his people. But when he opened them again, the screens still showed the same peaceful scene. And somewhere in the darkness between, the star's death was racing toward them at faster than light speed. Deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, something began to stir. The facility had been dark for 30 years, its corridors empty and silent. But now lights flickered on in sequence, running down hallways that had not seen activity since they were built. Computers that had been waiting in standby mode suddenly came to life, their screens filling with data streams and system diagnostics. Colonel Ryan Phillips felt the elevator descend for what seemed like forever. The facility was buried 3 miles beneath the ocean floor, carved out of solid rock and reinforced with materials that did not officially exist. He had been here only twice before, both times during the construction phase 30 years ago. Back then, he had been a young lieutenant with big dreams and no idea what he was really building. The elevator doors opened into a command center that took his breath away. The room was massive, with curved walls covered in holographic displays showing star charts, fleet positions, and tactical readouts. Dozens of technicians sat at control stations, their fingers flying over interfaces as they brought decades-old systems online. The air hummed with the sound of power flowing through circuits that had been waiting for this moment. "Status report," Ryan said as he walked to the central command platform. Around him, officers who had been living normal lives just hours ago were now wearing uniforms that most people had never seen. They moved with the efficiency of people who had trained for this day, but hoped it would never come. "All primary systems are online," reported Major Amy Carter, the facility's chief scientist. "The quantum generators are at full power and the communication arrays are establishing contact with the other sites. We should have full network connectivity within the hour." Ryan nodded and looked at the main display. It showed the solar system with hundreds of small dots scattered throughout. Each dot represented a facility like this one, hidden in asteroids, buried on moons, or floating in the emptiness between planets. For 30 years, they had been maintained by automated systems and a handful of caretakers who thought they were working on research projects. "What about the fleet?" Ryan asked. "Still running diagnostics," Amy replied. The ships have been in deep hibernation mode for 3 decades. It takes time to bring all their systems online safely. But the early reports look good. Hull integrity is at 100% on all vessels, and the main drives are showing green across the board. Ryan walked to one of the observation windows that looked out into the construction bay. The space was enormous, stretching away into darkness that seemed to go on forever. But he could see lights moving in that darkness, the running lights of ships that were slowly coming to life after their long sleep. Lieutenant Commander Steve Baker appeared at his side, holding a datapad with the latest intelligence reports. The Zephyrian fleet has entered the outer system, he said quietly. They are moving in the standard invasion formation, with their heavy ships at the front and support vessels behind. Admiral Crix is broadcasting surrender demands every 10 minutes. Any response from Earth? Ryan asked. President Hayes is still in meetings with the world leaders. The official line is that they are considering the Zephyrian demands, but we both know they are just buying time. Ryan understood. The civilian government had no idea what was really happening down here. They thought they were facing impossible odds with nothing but police ships and patrol boats. They were probably discussing evacuation plans and surrender terms right now, trying to find some way to save as many lives as possible. But they were wrong about Earth being defenseless. The planet had never been defenseless. It had just been very good at hiding its true strength. Amy walked over with another report. The Mars facility is fully operational. They are reporting that all 12 dreadnoughts in their sector are ready for deployment. The asteroid belt stations are still coming online, but they should be ready within the hour. Ryan felt a cold smile cross his face. 12 dreadnoughts from Mars alone. The Zephyrians had no idea what they were walking into. Their intelligence reports showed Earth as a peaceful world with no military capabilities. They had been watching human shipping for years and had never seen anything more dangerous than a cargo hauler. What they had not seen were the ships that moved through hyperspace corridors that did not appear on any galactic charts. Ships that looked like ordinary merchant vessels, but carried sensors that could map an entire star system from light years away. Ships that had been gathering intelligence on every potential threat to Earth for 3 decades. Bring up the tactical display, Ryan ordered. The main screen shifted to show the approaching Zephyrian fleet in detail. 200 ships arranged in a classic battle formation, led by Admiral Crix's flagship. The ships were impressive by galactic standards, with heavy armor and powerful weapons. But Ryan had studied these vessels for years. He knew every weakness, every blind spot, every system that could be exploited. They are using standard Zephyrian tactics, Steve observed. Heavy bombardment ships in the front to break planetary defenses, followed by troop transports for the ground invasion. They expect this to be over in a few hours. Ryan looked at the enemy formation and shook his head. They have no idea what they are dealing with. Show me our fleet status. The display changed to show the human vessels scattered throughout the solar system. Each ship appeared as a blue dot with its current readiness status. Most were showing green, indicating full operational capacity. A few were still yellow, as their crews completed final systems checks. How many ships do we have ready for deployment? Ryan asked. Amy checked her datapad. 43 dreadnoughts are fully operational. Another dozen should be ready within the hour. The support vessels and escort ships are all online and awaiting orders. 43 dreadnoughts. Ryan remembered when the project had started. They had planned to build only 12. But as the years went by, and the galactic situation became more unstable, the secret construction had expanded. Hidden shipyards in the asteroid belt had worked around the clock, building vessels that incorporated technology decades ahead of anything the Federation had ever seen. What about the crews? Ryan asked. All personnel are reporting to their assigned vessels, Steve replied. The cover stories worked perfectly. As far as anyone knows, they were just participating in routine training exercises or research projects. None of them knew the true nature of their assignments until today. Ryan nodded. The secrecy had been necessary, but also painful. Thousands of people had spent their careers preparing for this moment, without knowing what they were really preparing for. They had trained on simulators, studied enemy tactics, and practiced maneuvers, while believing they were part of some theoretical research program. The communication system crackled to life. Terra Command. This is Admiral Katie Moore, aboard the UES Leviathan. Fleet is approaching full readiness. Request permission to begin deployment. Ryan felt his heart race. Admiral Moore was one of the few people who had known the truth from the beginning. She had been chosen to command the fleet 30 years ago, and had spent her entire career preparing for this day. Now it was finally time to put their plans into action. Permission granted, Admiral. Deploy the fleet according to plan. Alpha. Acknowledged, Terra Command. Fleet is moving to intercept positions. Ryan watched the tactical display as blue dots began moving throughout the solar system. The ships were invisible to Zephyrian sensors, protected by stealth technology that the enemy could not detect. They would remain hidden until the last possible moment, then reveal themselves all at once. The Zephyrian fleet continued its approach, unaware that they were flying into the most sophisticated trap in galactic history. Admiral Crix was probably feeling confident right now, expecting an easy victory against a defenseless world. He would learn how wrong he was very soon. The Zephyrian fleet moved through space like a wall of death. Admiral Crix stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion, watching the blue marble of Earth grow larger on the main screen. The planet looked so peaceful, so helpless. There were no orbital fortresses, no defense platforms, no military vessels moving to intercept them. Just a few scattered cargo ships and passenger liners fleeing toward the outer system. Sir, we are receiving a transmission from the human government, reported his communications officer, a young Zephyrian named Vex. Put it through, Crix said. He was curious to hear what the humans would say. Would they beg for mercy? Would they try to negotiate? It did not matter. The Empire had already decided Earth's fate. The image of President William Hayes appeared on the screen. The human leader looked tired and defeated, exactly as Crix had expected. Behind him, Crix could see other human officials, all wearing the same expression of hopeless despair. Admiral Crix, Hayes began, his voice steady despite the circumstances. I am President Hayes of the United Earth Government. We have received your demands for surrender. And your answer? Crix asked, though he already knew what it would be. We cannot accept your terms, Hayes replied. Earth has committed no crime against the Zephyrian Empire. We have honored all our treaties and agreements. We will not surrender our world to unprovoked aggression. Crix smiled coldly. Then you have chosen death for your entire species. Your world will serve as an example to others who think they can defy the Empire's will. The transmission ended, and Crix turned to his tactical officer. Begin the bombardment. Target the major population centers first. I want the rest of the galaxy to see what happens to those who resist us. Sir, his sensor officer suddenly called out. I am detecting some unusual readings from the human fleet. Crix frowned. What human fleet? They have nothing but cargo vessels and patrol boats. That is what I thought, sir, but the sensors are showing something different. There are massive energy signatures appearing throughout the system. It is like ships are decloaking, but the readings are enormous. Crix walked to the sensor station and looked at the displays. What he saw made his blood run cold. Dozens of contacts were appearing on the screens, each one larger than his own flagship. They were positioned perfectly to surround his fleet, emerging from empty space like ghosts, materializing from the void. That is impossible, he whispered. The humans have no fleet. Captain Danny Rodriguez felt the familiar hum of the UES Leviathan's engines as his ship dropped out of stealth mode. Around him, the bridge crew worked with calm efficiency, their hands dancing over control panels as they brought weapon systems online. The ship was 3 kilometers long and packed with technology that the rest of the galaxy had never seen. All systems are green, reported his tactical officer, Commander Beth Clark. Weapons are charged and ready. Shields are at maximum power. Danny nodded and looked at the main screen. The Zephyrian fleet was spread out before them, their ships looking small and primitive compared to the human dreadnoughts. He could see the enemy vessels turning frantically, trying to understand what was happening as dozens of massive ships appeared around them. Communication from Admiral Moore, reported his comm officer. Put her through. Admiral Katie Moore's image appeared on a side screen. She was aboard the UES Thunderbolt, positioned on the other side of the Zephyrian formation. Her expression was calm and professional, the look of someone who had been preparing for this moment for decades. All ships report ready for action, she said. The enemy fleet is completely surrounded. They cannot escape. Danny felt a surge of pride. The plan was working perfectly. For 30 years, the human fleet had remained hidden, waiting for the day when Earth would need protection. That day had finally come. Open a channel to the Zephyrian flagship, Admiral Moore ordered. The image of Admiral Crix appeared on the screen. The alien commander looked shocked and confused, his 4 eyes wide with disbelief. Behind him, Danny could see others, officers running back and forth, shouting orders and trying to make sense of what was happening. "This is Admiral Moore of the Earth Defense Fleet," she said in a calm, steady voice. "You have entered our system with hostile intent and threatened our world. You have 30 seconds to reverse course and leave our space. This is your only warning." Crix's face twisted with rage. "Impossible. Earth has no fleet. Your world is defenseless." "You are mistaken," Mora replied. "Earth has never been defenseless. We simply chose not to advertise our capabilities. You have 20 seconds to comply with our demands." Danny watched as the Zephyrian fleet tried to reorganize itself. Some ships were turning to flee, while others were moving into attack formations, but it was too late. They were completely surrounded by human dreadnoughts, with no way to escape. "Sir," reported Commander Clark, "the enemy flagship is charging weapons. Multiple ships are targeting us. They are going to fight," Danny said. He had hoped the Zephyrians would see reason and withdraw, but their pride would not allow them to back down. "All hands, prepare for battle." Throughout the ship, alarms began to sound. The Leviathan's crew of 5,000 prepared for combat, taking their positions at gun stations, damage control centers, and command posts. They had trained for this day for years, running countless simulations and exercises. Now they would find out if their preparation had been enough. 10 seconds until their deadline expires, reported the comm officer. Danny looked at the Zephyrian fleet on his screen. Admiral Crix was probably making his final decision right now, choosing between retreat and destruction. Danny hoped the alien commander would choose wisely. "Time is up," Admiral Moore announced. "All ships, you are free to defend yourselves." The first shots came from the Zephyrian fleet. Bright energy beams lanced out from dozens of ships, targeting the human dreadnoughts with weapons that could crack planets. The space around the Leviathan lit up with explosions as enemy fire struck their shields. "Shields holding at 98%, reported the tactical officer. "Minor power fluctuations in sections 12 and 15. Danny smiled grimly. The Zephyrian weapons were powerful, but they were designed to fight conventional ships. The human dreadnoughts were built with shield technology that could withstand the heat of stars. It would take much more than standard naval guns to penetrate their defenses. "Return fire," Danny ordered. "Target their flagship first." The Leviathan's main gun fired for the first time in 30 years. The weapon was a gravity cannon that could manipulate space itself, creating focused beams of destructive force that no known armor could resist. The beam struck the Eternal Dominion's shields and punched through them like they were made of paper. The Zephyrian flagship shuddered under the impact. its hull buckling and twisting as the gravity beam tore through its structure. Secondary explosions rippled along its length as internal systems failed and ammunition stores detonated. "Direct hit on the enemy flagship," reported Clark. "Their shields are down, and they have multiple hull breaches. All around them, the other human dreadnoughts were opening fire. The space between the fleets lit up with energy beams, plasma streams, and kinetic projectiles moving at impossible speeds. The Zephyrian ships, designed for intimidation and conventional warfare, were being torn apart by weapons they had never imagined possible. Danny watched the battle unfold on his tactical display. The human fleet was performing exactly as planned, their ships moving with precision and firing with deadly accuracy. The Zephyrians were brave fighters, but they were outclassed in every way. Their weapons could barely scratch the human shields, while every shot from the dreadnoughts caused devastating damage. "Sir," reported the comm officer, "we are receiving surrender requests from multiple enemy vessels. They are asking for terms." Danny looked at the main screen, where the Zephyrian fleet was being systematically destroyed. Some ships were already fleeing, their crews broadcasting warnings about the human demons and their impossible weapons. Others were dead in space, their hulls cracked open, and their crews evacuating in escape pods. "Patch me through to Admiral Moore," Danny said. Moore's image appeared on the screen. Behind her, Danny could see the tactical displays showing the complete collapse of the Zephyrian formation. The battle was over, and humanity had won. The battle raged across the solar system like a storm of fire and metal. Commander Paul Jenkins gripped the armrest of his command chair aboard the UES Tempest as another volley of Zephyrian plasma cannons struck his ship. The bridge shook slightly, but the displays showed their shields holding strong at 95% power. "Damage report," Paul called out over the noise of battle. "Minor fluctuations in the secondary power grid," reported his engineering officer, Lieutenant Karen White. "All primary systems are operating normally. The enemy weapons are not penetrating our outer shields." Paul nodded and looked at the tactical display. The Zephyrian fleet was throwing everything they had at the human dreadnoughts, but their weapons were having little effect. The alien ships had been designed to fight other galactic navies, not vessels built with technology that was decades ahead of anything they had ever seen. "Sir, the enemy is concentrating fire on our forward sections," reported his tactical officer, Commander Rick Adams. "They are trying to overload our shields with focused bombardment." "Let them try," Paul said. "Return fire with the main batteries. Target their heavy cruisers first." The Tempest's weapons came alive with deadly precision. Plasma streams that burned hotter than the core of a star reached out across space, striking Zephyrian ships with devastating effect. The enemy vessels, protected by shields that would have been impressive against conventional weapons, were torn apart like tissue paper. Paul watched as a Zephyrian battlecruiser tried to ram his ship in a desperate suicide attack. The alien vessel accelerated to maximum speed, its hull glowing with the heat of its overloaded engines. But when it struck the Tempest's shields, it simply disintegrated, its remains scattered across space like dust. "Their commander is getting desperate," observed Rick. "That was their third ramming attempt in the last 5 minutes." Paul understood the enemy's desperation. The Zephyrians were discovering that everything they thought they knew about human capabilities was wrong. They had come expecting to face a defenseless world with nothing but cargo ships and patrol boats. Instead, they had found themselves surrounded by the most advanced war fleet in the galaxy. Captain Nicole Harper pulled her strike fighter into a tight turn, her enhanced reflexes allowing her to maneuver at speeds that would have killed an unknown pilot. Around her, the other pilots of Strike Squadron Alpha followed her lead, their small ships dancing between the massive dreadnoughts like sparrows among eagles. "Dragon Leader, this is Control," came the voice of her flight controller aboard, the UES Thunderbolt. "We have multiple enemy fighters approaching from Sector 7. You are cleared to engage." "Acknowledged. Control," Nicole replied. All dragons, follow my lead. Let's show these aliens how humans fight. The Zephyrian fighters came at them in a standard attack formation, their pilots confident in their superior numbers and advanced technology. But Nicole and her squadron had been training for this moment for years, their minds enhanced by neural interfaces that allowed them to think and react faster than any natural biological process. The two groups of fighters met in a swirling dogfight that lasted only minutes. The human pilots moved with impossible grace, their ships seeming to anticipate the enemy's attacks before they were made. The Zephyrians, despite their skill and experience, found themselves outmaneuvered and outgunned at every turn. Splash. For enemy fighters, reported Lieutenant Mike Torres from Nicole's wing. They're breaking off and trying to regroup. Negative, Nicole replied. Do not let them escape. These pilots have seen our capabilities and cannot be allowed to report back to their fleet. The human fighters pursued the retreating Zephyrians with relentless efficiency. Their weapons, designed using principles that the enemy had never encountered, struck with pinpoint accuracy. One by one, the alien fighters were destroyed, their pilots never understanding how they had been defeated so easily. Back on the bridge of the Leviathan, Captain Danny Rodriguez watched the battle unfold with grim satisfaction. The human fleet was performing exactly as designed, their ships working together with clockwork precision. The Zephyrian formation was collapsing under the coordinated assault, their vessels scattered and burning throughout the solar system. Sir, we are receiving a priority transmission from the enemy flagship, reported his communications officer. Put it through, Danny ordered. The image of Admiral Crix appeared on the screen. The Zephyrian commander looked nothing like the confident warrior who had demanded Earth's surrender just hours before. His uniform was torn and bloody, and behind him, Danny could see smoke and sparks from damaged systems. I request terms for surrender, Crix said, his voice barely above a whisper. My fleet is beaten. We yield to your superior forces. Danny looked at the tactical display. Of the 200 ships that had entered the solar system, less than 50 were still capable of fighting. The rest were either destroyed or fleeing toward the outer system. The human fleet had suffered no losses and only minor damage. You will order all remaining ships to stand down immediately, Danny replied. Any vessel that attempts to flee will be destroyed. Your crews will be taken into custody and held until arrangements can be made for their return to Zephyrian space. Crix nodded wearily. It will be done, but I must ask, how is this possible? Our intelligence showed that Earth had no military fleet. How did you hide so many ships? Danny smiled coldly. We did not hide them, Admiral. We simply chose not to advertise their existence. Humanity has always believed that the best defense is preparation, not aggression. The transmission ended, and Danny turned to his tactical officer. Signal the fleet. All ships are to cease fire and begin recovery operations. We need to secure the enemy survivors and assess the damage. Throughout the solar system, the human dreadnoughts began the process of mopping up the remaining Zephyrian forces. Rescue ships moved among the wreckage, picking up escape pods and treating the wounded. The battle was over, but the real work was just beginning. Admiral Katie Moore stood on the bridge of the EU's Thunderbolt, watching the aftermath of the battle on her tactical displays. The Zephyrian fleet, one of the most feared armadas in the galaxy, had been destroyed in less than an hour. The human casualties were minimal, with only a few minor injuries reported across the entire fleet. Ma'am, we are receiving transmissions from across the galaxy, reported her communications officer. The news of our victory is spreading fast. The Federation Council is requesting immediate contact. Katie nodded. She had expected this. The galaxy had just witnessed the emergence of a new military power, one that had been hiding in plain sight for decades. The political implications would be enormous. Put me through to Terra Command, she ordered. Colonel Ryan Phillips appeared on the screen, his face showing a mixture of relief and exhaustion. Behind him, the command center was busy with activity as staff officers coordinated the post-battle operations. "Congratulations, Admiral," Ryan said. "The fleet performed flawlessly. Earth is safe. For now," Katie replied. "But this is just the beginning. The galaxy will never see humanity the same way again. We need to be prepared for the consequences." Ryan nodded grimly. "The President is already preparing a statement for the galactic community. We need to make it clear that we acted in self-defense and have no aggressive intentions toward other worlds." Katie looked at the wreckage of the Zephyrian fleet scattered across her displays. "I hope they believe us. Because if they don't, this war is far from over." The Battle of Earth was complete, but the real challenge was just beginning. Humanity had revealed its true strength to the galaxy, and nothing would ever be the same again. The Federation Council chamber had never been so quiet. Representatives from hundreds of worlds sat in stunned silence as the holographic display showed the aftermath of the battle at Earth. The wreckage of the Zephyrian fleet floated in space, like a graveyard of metal and dreams, each broken ship a testament to the sudden shift in galactic power. "Counselor, Vex of the Altarian Republic finally broke the silence. How many ships did the humans lose?" Ambassador TRN of the Centauri Federation checked his datapad. "According to our sensors, they suffered no losses. Minor damage to a few vessels, but all human ships are intact and operational." The silence returned heavier than before. 200 Zephyrian ships had been destroyed or captured by a fleet that nobody knew existed. The peaceful humans, who had been dismissed as harmless merchants and diplomats, had just demonstrated the most devastating military power the galaxy had ever seen. Admiral Katie Moore stood at the center of the council chamber, her uniform crisp, and her bearing proud. Around her, the holographic images of council members shifted nervously, their confidence shaken by what they had witnessed. She had been invited to address the emergency session, but she knew that invitation was really a demand. "Admiral Moore," said Council President Zara of the Vrex Coalition, "the Federation requires an explanation. How did Earth hide such a massive fleet for so long?" Katie looked around the chamber at the faces of species who had been content to abandon Earth to its fate just hours before. Now they wanted answers, but their tone had changed from pity to fear. "We did not hide anything," Katie replied calmly. "We simply chose not to advertise our defensive capabilities. The Terra Defense Force was created to protect Earth and its colonies from exactly the kind of unprovoked aggression the Zephyrians attempted." "But your ships," pressed Counselor Dex of the Rigelian Empire. "They use technology decades ahead of anything in the Federation archives. How did you develop such advanced weapons?" Katie smiled slightly. "Humanity has always been innovative. We took the knowledge shared through the Federation and improved upon it. Our scientists worked for 30 years to create the most effective defense possible." Back on Earth, President William Hayes sat in his office watching the council session. On his private screen, the revelation of the Terra Defense Force had sent shockwaves through human society as well. Protests and celebrations were happening simultaneously in cities around the world as people struggled to understand what their government had been hiding. Dr. Janet Collins, his chief science advisor, entered the office, carrying a stack of reports. "The public reaction is mixed," she said. "Some people are angry about the secrecy, but most are proud of what we accomplished. The approval ratings are actually going up." William nodded, but continued watching the screen. "What about the other human colonies? How are they reacting?" "They're celebrating," Janet replied. "The colonists on New Chicago are throwing parties in the streets. They know that Earth's protection extends to them as well. For the first time in decades, humans throughout the galaxy feel safe." On the screen, Admiral Moore was answering questions from increasingly nervous council members. The Zephyrian Empire had been one of the most feared powers in the galaxy, and humanity had destroyed their fleet in less than an hour. If Earth could do that to the Zephyrians, what could they do to other worlds? "Admiral," said Counselor Yex of the Tau Ceti Republic. The Federation needs assurance that Earth will not use this fleet for aggressive purposes. Your ships are powerful enough to threaten any world in the galaxy. Katie's expression hardened. The Terra Defense Force exists to protect the innocent, not to conquer worlds. We acted in self-defense against an unprovoked attack. We have no desire to rule over other species. But how can we trust your word? Asked Counselor Vex. You hid this fleet for 30 years. How do we know you are not planning to use it for conquest? Katie was about to respond when another voice cut through the chamber. Because they already proved it. Everyone turned to see Ambassador Klex of the Vegan Federation standing at his podium. The elderly diplomat had been a member of the Council for over 50 years and was respected throughout the galaxy for his wisdom and fairness. The humans had the power to destroy the Zephyrian fleet completely, Klex continued. They could have shown no mercy, taken no prisoners. Instead, they ceased fire the moment Admiral Crix surrendered. They rescued enemy survivors and treated the wounded. These are not the actions of conquerors. The chamber erupted in discussion as representatives debated the implications of Klex's words. Katie stood quietly in the center, letting the argument wash over her. She knew that this was just the beginning of a long process of adjustment for the galactic community. Commander Jake Morrison watched the council session from his observation post between Mars and Jupiter. The hidden station was no longer quite so hidden, now that the truth about Earth's defenses had been revealed. He could see human patrol ships moving openly through the system, no longer pretending to be simple cargo vessels. His sister Karen had called him just an hour ago, her voice full of questions about his real job and what he had been doing all these years. The conversation had been difficult, but she had ended it by saying she was proud of him. That meant more to Jake than any medal or commendation ever could. Sir, said Lieutenant Susan Parker, his communications officer, we are receiving reports from across the galaxy. The Zephyrian Empire is collapsing. Their member worlds are declaring independence now that their fleet is gone. Jake nodded. The Zephyrian Empire had been held together by fear and military might. With their fleet destroyed, that fear was gone, and their subject worlds were seizing the opportunity to break free. What about other hostile powers? Jake asked. The Scorpion Consortium has withdrawn all their ships to defensive positions, Susan reported. The Draconian Hegemony is requesting a non-aggression pact with Earth. It seems like everyone is reconsidering their expansion plans. Jake smiled. This was exactly what the Terra Defense Force had been designed to achieve. Not conquest or domination, but peace through strength. The galaxy's aggressive powers were learning that there were consequences for unprovoked attacks. Back in the council chamber, Admiral Moore was concluding her address. The Terra Defense Force will continue to protect Earth and its allies from aggression. We will not seek war, but we will not allow our worlds to be threatened. The galaxy is safer today than it was yesterday. Council President Zara nodded slowly. The Federation recognizes Earth's right to defend itself. We also acknowledge the restraint shown by your forces during the recent conflict. The Council will be reviewing our mutual defense treaties in light of these new circumstances. Katie understood the subtext. The Federation, which had been unwilling to risk war with the Zephyrians to defend Earth, was now eager to make sure they remained on humanity's good side. The political balance of the galaxy had shifted dramatically in the span of a few hours. As the council session ended, Katie felt a mix of relief and concern. The immediate threat to Earth was over, but the long-term implications were still unclear. Humanity had always preferred peace to war, but now they had the power to enforce that peace across the galaxy. Colonel Ryan Phillips stood in the command center beneath the Pacific Ocean, watching as the facility began to return to standby mode. The crisis was over, but the Terra Defense Force would remain ready. The galaxy had learned that Earth was not defenseless, and that lesson would not be forgotten. Sir, said Major Amy Carter, we are receiving surrender offers from the remaining Zephyrian ships. What are your orders? Ryan looked at the tactical display showing the scattered remnants of the enemy fleet. Accept their surrender and begin repatriation procedures. We are not conquerors, Major. We are protectors. Throughout the galaxy, the news of Earth's victory was spreading. On 1,000 worlds, species that had lived in fear of Zephyrian aggression were celebrating their liberation. The human fleet had not just defended Earth. It had freed countless worlds from tyranny, but with that freedom came responsibility. Humanity had revealed its true strength, and the galaxy would never be the same. The question now was not whether humans could defend themselves, but whether they could use their power wisely to build a better future for all species. The Dreadnoughts had spoken, and their message was clear. The age of unchallenged aggression was over. Peace would be protected, and those who threatened the innocent would face the consequences. The galaxy was entering a new era, one where humanity would play a very different role than anyone had imagined. In the depths of space, the human fleet began its return to the hidden stations and secret bases where they had waited for 30 years. But now everyone knew they were there. Silent guardians watching over a galaxy that had learned to respect the quiet strength of Earth.